the top. Okay. Drop that. Yeah. Feel the funk, y'all. Yeah. Feel the funk, y'all. Yeah. You laid back in the cut. What's up? What's up?
From Alpha to Omega, VHS to Beta, PlayStation to Sega, my skill is still greater. The sickest thing since VD, wicked like VG. Live my life crooked like the left finger on ET. Please believe me, this be the realest thing I ever wrote.
Iced coffee, so deadly. I debated making this video for you guys, but I figured that maybe it might be helpful for somebody, so I thought I would go ahead and do it anyway. If you guys are watchers of our channel, and if you know a little bit about photography and video, you might know that we shoot all of our slow-mo in 60 frames per second, not 120, 60. There's a lot of hype around shooting 120 frames per second, and here's why we stopped. Grainy, 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 very grainy, grainy again. Noise, 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 noise. Noise. Not good. Yep, not good. So we shoot on a Sony A7S2. When we got our camera, we started shooting slow-mo in 120. However, I noticed that the shots were very grainy. We stopped shooting 120 and started shooting 60 because it was cleaner. It looked better when we graded, and that was it. We just thought we'd switch. But then something occurred to me that I didn't really think of before because I guess I'm a noob. I don't know. I'm still learning video. It's still a process. Every day is a learning process. I thought maybe it wasn't the 120. Maybe it's S-Log2 because we shoot everything in log gamma, so we have more dynamic range, we have more flexibility in post for color grading. So we used to shoot S-Log3, then we switched to S-Log2 and got better results, but the 120 was still falling apart, so I just thought it was the bitrate, but maybe it's S-Log. So I did some tests, and it was S-Log. The intro sequence you guys just saw of me making this tasty Beverly was shot at 120 frames per second, ISO like 8000. It's very dark in that corner with the Cine4 profile. Previously, I've shot similar sequences at 120 frames per second with S-Log2, and the footage looks like crap. I thought I'd make this comparison video to show you the difference between Cine4 gamma and log gamma at 120 frames per second slowed down. Already noticing a huge difference. So I'm gonna go shoot some stuff. I wanna finish this because it's been sitting here for a while. Gotta give it a stir. Okay.
Put the place up. Put my face up.
Very interesting. So first, let's talk about picture profiles in general. What is S-Log2 or S-Log3? So S-Log2 is a really flat picture profile. It basically allows us to capture a lot of dynamic range in one shot that we kind of tweak and post afterwards to bring back the colors. When you see S-Log footage or log footage in general coming out of a camera, it looks very flat. The highlights are crushed down, the blacks are brought up, and that allows us to kind of tweak it a lot more in post. We don't really have to worry too much about clipping highlights or shadows in camera. Well, we do need to worry about it. We're not shooting raw, but it gives us a little more leeway in terms of exposure. While we shoot everything in S-Log2 when we're shooting our vlogs, when we shoot in 4K, we really like log gamma because it allows us to have a lot of flexibility in post when we're doing color grading and things like that. But as mentioned earlier in this video, when we're shooting slow-mo, the footage tends to fall apart, and that's why we're doing this test today. So the only time I've really seen the footage fall apart has been in 120 frames per second. 24 at 4K, clean as can be, even up until like nighttime shooting. The A7S is very good in low light, and that's proven in some of the videos we've shot before where we've been in really dark situations and the shots are very clean. So that's why I was kind of surprised when I started shooting in 120 FPS that the footage was really grainy. When you shoot in 120, it zooms in on the sensor, so you're cropping out a lot of pixels there. The other thing is when you're shooting in S-Log2 or S-Log3, your ISO is natively set to 1600 when you're shooting in 4K or 3200 when you're shooting in 120 frames per second. So you're already starting at a higher ISO, therefore your shot is already gonna be a little more grainy than it would say at like ISO 400 or 500. Okay, so let's take a look at the shot where I'm walking down the dock. On the left here we have the S-Log2 footage, and And on the right, we have the Cine4 footage. Now, as you can see, the highlights are well preserved on the S-Log side, not so much on the Cine4, but the shadows start to fall apart on the S-Log side, and this is what bothers me about shooting in S-Log at 120 frames per second. You can see a lot of color noise in the blacks of my sandals. Now, this is a bright, sunny day, so your native ISO is already at 3200. I'm shooting at f2.8, my shutter speed is 1/250th of a second. We're already starting at that. We have an ND filter to kind of cut the light down, but again, you're still seeing in bright daylight a lot of noise in the shadows. Now flip to the Cine4 shot, and it's a lot cleaner. You're not seeing any noise at all because this clip was shot at ISO 400, f2.8, and 1/250th of a second. Again, we're starting at a lower ISO, so it's gonna be a cleaner shot to begin with, and we're not getting any noise. Let's look at the water shots. So actually, there's not a big difference in the water shots. They look fairly similar. You can really see the dynamic range of the S-Log to picture profile here, especially in the highlights. You can see that they're almost like pretty clipped off. They're very flat on the S-Log 2 footage. But again, in the shadows, you can start to see some color noise there. We're here on the Cine4 shot with the water, very clean. Let's talk about the building. This is what I find very interesting. So on the left, we have the S-Log 2 footage. All of these clips have been converted with a log to Rec 709 LUT, and basically that LUT just kind of brings back the log footage to kind of like a regular looking clip that you would see out of your camera. Typically when we edit S-Log footage, that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna add an adjustment layer with that LUT on top of it to bring it back to a normal look, and then we're gonna grade it by hand, either in Lumetri or 3D LUT Creator Pro. We're gonna do a color grading tutorial. Don't worry, I know you guys have been asking for it, so we'll do that soon. If you compare the sign actually to the Cine4 footage, a lot of color noise here. It's obviously a little bit brighter, but you can see a lot of purpley magenta noise compared to the sign on the other shot. Okay, here's the most obvious difference to me, and this is when I start seeing the footage really fall apart, is in lower light. And the A7S is supposed to be really good in low light, which is why I was a little bit disappointed when we started shooting 120 frames per second, that it wasn't performing so well at low light, which is why we switched to 60. But here you can see on the left, we have the S-Log 2 footage converted to Rec 709, and you can see a lot of color noise. There's a lot of magenta and green noise here. And then on the right, we still have noise, but it's kind of more monochrome. This was the Cine4, so that's to be expected. The ISO here was, I think, 12,800, so it's boosted high already. Now, I haven't tried any like denoising software or filters. My computer is quite slow. We're already editing in 4K, so to add filters like that on top of things, it's just more processing time. It's going to be harder on the computer, and it's going to be a little bit slower. So I want to get my shots as close to good in camera as possible. Differences are definitely very clear. So while I am a huge fan of S-Log, more specifically S-Log 2 for regular footage and filming, I will be switching my 120 frames per second to Cine4 just so we can get more of a cleaner result and start shooting more of that slow-mo. There's nothing wrong with 60, but sometimes you just want that extra magic from the 120 frames per second. Random video. This is different than what anything else we've ever done. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you found it helpful. If you like the video, give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and hit the bell so you get notified when we post new videos. We will see you on the next one. Bye! I know how to sit in this chair. I'm gonna sit like this. Loves a good Beverly, I does. This is over.